So it's all about speed in today's sprint, not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? We're back here in Losail for a track that's 3.34 miles long. There are 16 turns around its unique three-prong shape and just a single DRS zone out of turn 16. It's fast and it's flowing, and there's a good overtaking opportunity with DRS down the long straight and into turn 1. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Russell, Carlos Sainz and Albon, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Stroll and Callie Mayer, Jackson, Piastri, Pierre Gasly and Tsunoda, Bortoletto, Ocon, Isaac Hadjar and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Doohan and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. And alongside me today, a man small in stature but big on comment, Anthony Davidson. Hello. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. So we come to Qatar this weekend, and what's the word I'm looking for when I think about the middle part of this track? Relentless.
The whole track's relentless. It's predominantly built to be a motorbike circuit. For an F1 car, that means a lot of G-force. It's hot here, it's humid this time of the year that we come to in Formula One, and this puts pressure on the drivers. It also puts pressure on the car and the demands of the tyres. So it's a brutal circuit.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
All right, here we are pulling up to the grid for the final sprint race of the season here under the floodlights of Qatar. Both Konnersport drivers starting this sprint next to each other ahead of the Alpine and the McLaren. I believe that was of Oscar Piastri. I could be wrong. As we are towards the end of the season, it is Oscar Piastri P12, Mayer P10, Jackson P11, 5 red lights are on. And we are off to a good start. Stroll and Alonso ahead. McLaren of Norris pulling off to the right. 3 wide with the Williams of Carlos Sainz there on the left side. So make a little bit of contact between Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll. 3 wide through turn 1. A little bit of damage, not too much to pop up on our screen as we're coming through corner number 3, I believe it was. Starting in P9 as everyone's starting to go single file. I believe there's still a handful of people down the grid who are too wide as we see, yeah, it's going to be Lawson and Doohan back there that are too wide as we make a move on Carlos Sainz up in a P8. As we break a little late, excuse me if you heard that. As George Russell ahead, our championship battle between Russell and Jackson. So Jackson needs to be ahead of Russell right now. But Alonso's up there in P6 as we start going through the rest of this grid. We see Norris trying to make a move on Albon. He's within 0.2 of a second as Hamilton is leading Verstappen there on the front of the grid. And I believe Verstappen can win the championship with a podium for the sprint race. If not, just regardless of points finish for Verstappen will get him the Drivers' Championship. I am not entirely sure. I haven't looked at the points before the race weekend, so I don't know if he clinched it beforehand or not. But we are going through the main straight now on to lap 2 as we see a lot of position changes. Jackson making a move on Sainz, moving up to P9. Mayer holding on to P8. As right now, 1.2 seconds and gaining some time. Russell is in P7, 1.7. You can see we're losing a little bit of time already coming through this. It's literally, Qatar is fast-paced the entire time. As we're moving on to the end of lap 2, Jackson and Sainz have DRS, so you can see Piastri close behind. That's going to be an easy pass from Jackson up into the points. As we're looking to defend Carlos Sainz now in the Williams. Albon up into P6. So Sainz trying to make it a double points finish for Williams in this final sprint race of the season, as they've been really doing good the last few races. As you see, we're still losing time to our teammate. Now we're moving on to lap 3, the end of lap 3, where Verstappen looks to make a move for the lead against Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Leclerc is sitting P3. He's more than a half second back. He's trying to close the gap. Might be able to gain some time on them here through turn 1, as Verstappen made a move on the outside. We see Russell making a move on the inside of Albon, as Jackson still holding on to P8, Mayer P9, fending off Piastri. Sainz, I believe, was behind Piastri before we transition to this lap, but I could be wrong as we're going through the grid yet again. Doing it, Behrman Lawson, 1.7 seconds behind Behrman, so I don't know what's going on with him back there unless he made a mistake. So we're on board with Alonso trying to chase down Norris, back down through the rest of the grid here as we pretty much towards the end of lap 4 already, almost halfway done. No, we're halfway through lap 4 actually. Now I see where we're at. But moving on to the end of lap 4, we're looking to defend P9 against Piastri as Alonso loses positions. I believe he lost 2 positions. I could be wrong. As I'm saying that, we lose 2 positions, dropping down to P11 as Callie Mayer, Piastri ahead of Sainz, who are sitting P9, P10. Jackson 2.2 seconds back behind Albon, as Russell, his championship battle for this race weekend, up into P5. Now we're up to Albon, who made a move on Jackson, I believe. No, he was ahead with a engine failure. So it's going to be a free position for Jackson, free position for Piastri. Up into the points. That's Albon No, Albon's out. It's Carlos Sainz P9, Callie Mayer P10, as Sainz looks to chase down Piastri, as that's not going to be the last retirement for this race weekend, as Verstappen is still about 7/10 ahead now. 1.2 seconds is the gap, as Callie Mayer is looking to defend against Yuki Tsunoda in the other Red Bull. And a little bit of a spoiler if you guys are paying attention to these episodes, Tsunoda is retiring at the end of this season, so we will not see Tsunoda in that Red Bull seat. It's going to be interesting to see who we get in that second Red Bull seat. So if you guys are paying attention, please comment who you think is going to fill that Red Bull spot next to Max Verstappen, depending on the other driver changes. As we're on to lap 9 now. Easy overtake from Kimi Antonelli on Callie Mayer. Nothing we could really do there, as we're losing tire life, and just this is a low downforce track. We just didn't have the right setup, I felt like, for this sprint race. And coming down to the end of lap 9, that's going to be Gasly making a move as well. You saw him in the mirror there. He's going to be making a move. We're trying to defend as much as we can, try to get him off the racing line to defend that position. That is going to be Gasly up into P12, Jackson into P8 currently as we starting the lap 10. Verstappen 1.3 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. He's coming through this final corner, and that's going to be Lewis Hamilton P2, Leclerc, no, that's going to be the Mercedes in P3. That's going to be Max Verstappen, 5-time world champion here in Qatar for 2025.
And so the celebrations begin, and well earned they are indeed. It might have looked simple at times, but as any racing driver will tell you, competing at this level at the very top is anything but simple. There's no catching them now then. We have a new World Drivers' Champion. So that wraps up the sprint race, but there's still more action yet to come this weekend. We've got qualifying and, of course, the Grand Prix.
All right, you guys saw it there with the sprint race win for Max Verstappen. He clinches the driver's standing. I'm trying to say constructors. He clinches the drivers' championship for Formula One, making him a 5-time world champion, leading and winning against Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton are still in the fight for the top 4. Oscar Piastri seems like he's out of the fight because we have one feature race and Abu Dhabi to go. But yeah, so McLaren still has an opportunity to beat Ferrari in the constructor standings by 60 points. I think. I'm not entirely sure. I think that's not enough points because if McLaren scores double points, Ferrari doesn't have to score any points because it's 37, 28 points, 25, 37, 38 points or something like that for double podium, 1-2 on the podium. But yeah, so Aiden Jackson holds on to P6 against George Russell by 5 points with that finish. Callum Ayer still sitting in P8 out of the fight against George Russell for P7, as Konnersport is still sitting strong in P4. So pretty much these last 2 races we get to rest and relax and look forward to the next season. So let's get on to the feature race.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once more to the Middle East for what could be a very tricky night for our drivers tonight. Sandy, dusty, and with the sun setting, the temperature dropping too. This could be an intriguing event. Stand by for the Qatar Grand Prix. So we're back here in Losail, and this is the track map. 3.34 miles, 16 turns, and just 1 DRS zone out of turn 16. It's already a fast and flowing track after all. There's a good overtaking opportunity with DRS though, through the long straight and into turn 1. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Jackson, Max Verstappen, and Mayer, Sainz, Russell, Tsunoda, and Fernando Alonso, Bortoleto, Stroll, Lando Norris, and Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Liam Lawson, and Ollie Behrman, Ocon, Hadjar, Albon, and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And alongside me today, former Formula One driver and former world champion too. See, told you I'll give you a big intro. Anthony Davidson, hello. So we come to Qatar this weekend, and what's the word I'm looking for when I think about the middle part of this track? Relentless.
The whole track's relentless. It's predominantly built to be a motorbike circuit. For an F1 car, that means a lot of G-force. It's hot here, it's humid this time of the year that we come to in Formula One, and this puts pressure on the drivers. It also puts pressure on the car and the demands of the tyres. So it's a brutal circuit.
Here we go then. The formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, here we are, pulling up to the grid slot for the second last time of the season. The sprint race is over with. Max Verstappen, 5-time world champion in our career mode from the previous seasons. We see the rest of the cars pulling up to the grid slot. You see the Williams there in the back row. Alon getting that retirement early on in the sprint race. Callie Mayer starting P6. Piastri, Hamilton front row. 5 red lights are off. We're off to a good start against Verstappen on the left side. We make a move. The 2 Ferraris file in behind Piastri. It's going to be somewhat of a 3 wide situation there as we give Jackson the inside corner. He's going to be up into P4. Russell, Verstappen, Sainz, Tsunoda 2x2 behind us as we're sitting P5. Then Piastri leading the charge through these fast turns. We altered the setup a little bit to make sure we had a better time throughout this main race. You see Hadjar and Doohan swapping positions back there, as I believe the last 4 are 2x2. Hadjar, Doohan, Lawson, and Ocon. As we're going through the grid, we see both Ferraris, both Konnersports, both Red Bulls in the top 10, with alone McLaren, Mercedes, Williams, and Bortoleto surprisingly into the top 10 currently. In the Salvers, we're on board with, I believe that was Doohan side by side with Hadjar, as we're going around the rest of the grid, cycling back to Piastri, who's now about 7 tenths ahead of Hamilton and Leclerc. Russell P5 separating the Konnersport cars, as we're already done with lap 1. So this fast-paced track, really low downforce track. I feel like we made confident changes to our setup, and we're going to be able to see what we can do here at the end of this next lap, lap 2. But at lap 3, we're actually going to be able to make a move on Hamilton, who's dropped down to P5. Now to P6, Verstappen still sitting P7. Looks like Leclerc and Piastri are fighting position up ahead for first slot. Russell P3, Jackson still P4. And that is Bortoleto, who dropped down to P14 actually. Alonso currently sitting now. Tsunoda currently sitting in the top 10. As Piastri, Leclerc, Russell, Verstappen making the move on Calimere. Nothing we can really do except for push him off of that racing line to see as much as we can do throughout this race. And you can already tell with that overtake, it's going to be a lot of overtakes down that main straight, especially with our setup. I honestly feel like I should have gone a little bit lower on my front and rear wing setups, because it just overtakes down this main straight as we're watching Leclerc make a move for the lead on Piastri on the inside. DRS open and closed. Barely making it by here through turn 1. That's going to be Russell right into the gearbox of Piastri as well, as Verstappen and Jackson are fighting for position. You can see there Leclerc with an engine failure early in this feature race in Qatar. So that's going to be his opportunity to help the team with the constructors gone and done with, leaving Hamilton back in P7 as Verstappen moves up to P4. Jackson provisional podium at this time, just shy of 2 seconds clear of Russell. He's trying to close in. Russell's 6 tenths back behind Piastri. This Calimere still trying to close in on Verstappen through these fast-paced turns. I don't know what the lighting is, or I think it was because of a graphics update that I needed to do, but just the floodlights on this car in some parts of the track just weren't there. Because we're now lap 10, lap 11. Verstappen looking to make a move on Jackson. Nothing he could do. He moves to the inside to cover the inside line. Verstappen makes a move on the outside with DRS. Not quite there. They're still side by side. Hamilton pushes, or Jackson unable to push through. Verstappen holding on to P3, having the inside corner of that next turn. It looks like Bortoleto is already back down to P20, so I don't know if he went in for an early pit stop. That's going to be Jackson, Mayer back to P4, P5, with Carlos Sainz closing in on Mayer. Hamilton still sitting P7 as we're coming to the end of lap 11 now. Back on board with Calimere for our pit stop, and we actually do opt to come in a lap early, so we see Sainz fighting Hamilton for position, looks like. And yeah, nobody else coming in the pits here, so we're sitting P12, lap 12 now of 29, and this field is already pretty spread. You can see Gasly just passed us. Not really any major issues there for us. for our pit stop. You can see Hadjar just passing, Lawson passing. You can just tell how fast-paced this track is, that we didn't drop to the very end. We have we have 6 cars behind us. So you can hear Albon closing in because we're on cold tires, hard tires hitting to the end of this race. As Russell leads Piastri by 2 seconds. Now we're on board with Russell towards the end of lap 12. Verstappen 1.5 behind Piastri. We're looking to see who else is going to be coming in. Top 3 aren't coming in. Jackson staying out. The Williams of Sainz staying out. It looks like Antonelli is going to be the next person in. That's going to be, I believe, Alonso coming in behind him. Stroll, Norris electing to stay out, along with Tsunoda, Hamilton. We see Alonso getting a decent pit stop. Antonelli having a good pit stop, so no position change there. We have Behrman and Hadjar, looks like, coming in. Lawson elect to stay out. Mayer, Albon passing. Now we have a battle between Behrman and Hadjar. See Behrman having an issue, looks like. And yeah, they were released pretty much at the same time. So Behrman losing position in the pits to Hadjar with a pit issue. We have Ocon coming through, not pitting yet. Russell, Piastri, Verstappen 2.1, 2.2 is the gap now between Russell and Piastri, as Jackson still sitting P4, 3 seconds behind Verstappen, who is currently sitting on that P3 spot for the podium. Carlos Sainz trying to close in on Jackson at this time, as these medium tires are really starting to feel the wear and tear. So we're hoping to see them coming in pretty soon. You could hear the gearbox of Carlos Sainz's Williams behind him. And I originally thought that the Qatar pit lane was before that final corner. But then again, I didn't get that far in 2024, so I don't know if that's when they updated it. So we have a little bit of a choppy pit lane cinematic here. We see the McLaren leaving at the same time as the Mercedes. Looks like there's going to be a right rear issue for Jackson, so that's not going to help his pit stop. He's going to be losing position to Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll. So we see Albon out on the main track. It's going to be Callie Merritt coming up ahead of Carlos Sainz coming out of the pits now. Stroll coming out of the pits slowly ahead of Jackson. And it's pretty much going to be widespread. So we're back behind Verstappen. Albon sitting P6 now, and Carlos Sainz sitting P9. So Albon, I don't think he pit yet, but I could be wrong. We're back on board with Doohan, who actually DNF'd. If you guys notice, he hasn't finished lap 13 yet, so he actually retired before coming into the pit lane from his pit stop. That's going to be the second DNF for this race here in Qatar, this feature race. Hamilton leading Tsunoda by a second, with Norris close behind their provisional podium, but they need to really push because Russell P4, Piastri P5, and Albon P6, so 18 seconds is the gap between Russell and Norris, so that's about 22 seconds, so that's about the time frame that it takes for a pit stop here in Qatar. As you can see the Alpine of Doohan sitting there at the pit entry as Hamilton, Tsunoda, Norris come in. See if their grid spots will change. That's going to be the McLaren out. Tsunoda jumping the gun on Norris. Hamilton losing position to both of them, actually. As we see it, Russell, Piastri, Albon coming through the main straight. Callie up the P5. Tsunoda trying to get out, but Sainz and Antonelli pass. A lot of traffic coming out here on lap 15 of that pit lane, as Jackson is back down to P12. Very, very tough for him at this situation, coming out in traffic on those hard tires, and his rivalry battle is currently sitting on the top step of the podium right now. Russell is 2 seconds clear of Oscar Piastri, who is then fighting for position against Albon. Antonelli about 2.8 seconds behind Callie Mayer as we're over halfway through this race. And after a few initial laps, you can see this mistake here that we make. We lose a lot of time on Antonelli, and that's basically going to be downhill from here. Lap 19 now, about 11 laps to go. Carlos Sainz ahead of Tsunoda, ahead of Antonelli, who is 1.2 seconds ahead. It's going to be out of DRS, but we're going to look to see what kind of situation we can be in. Albon, very long, either a very long stint on those soft tires, or he ran a 2-stop. So he is coming into the pits. That's free position for Callie Mayer. But it's still George Russell P1 by 3 seconds now. Piastri P2 and Verstappen holding on to P3. But it is lap 20 now. Carlos Sainz looking to make a move on Callie Mayer for P4. Now Callie Mayer is down to P5 with Tsunoda close behind, as we are starting to feel the tire life of these hard tires. Even though we just recently came out on these hard tires, this is a fast-paced track, and our left front tire was just destroyed at this point in the race. It seemed a little bit early on, but we have Tsunoda on the right, Hamilton on the left, losing 2 positions down to P7 now. That's already Norris and Antonelli close behind, and Jackson already up to P10, fending off Stroll and Alonso for the back end of the points. And it's just going to be rinse and repeat for us here at this latter end of Qatar on these hard tires. Hamilton now looking to make the move easy as can be. Just nothing we can really do about it. Norris P8, Antonelli P9, Jackson still sitting P10. They're going to be next up for possible overtake on us, as we're struggling at this point. Back to the start-finish line. Well, the turn before the start-finish line. See Antonelli as well within 0.3 of a second. Might be another double overtake, but I could be wrong. Now it's going to be the start of lap 1 where we make the mistake. I was pretty tired, to be honest, while recording this race. So we were falling asleep, we were hitting rewinds and trying to fix those mistakes, but I was just out of it. Norris making a move on Callie Mayer, now down to P9, Jackson P10. Still holding off the Aston Martins of Lance Stroll and Alonso. Russell now 4.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen, who passed Piastri. 5 seconds clear now as Jackson makes the move on Mayer, and then so does Stroll try to make a move here on the inside. No, not quite. But that's going to be the next lap as we're nearing the end of this race, and we're feeling horrible. I had a feeling I at least had somewhat of a fight against Lance Stroll, because I know Lance Stroll is pretty much a midfield driver, but we do what we can to outbrake Lance Stroll on the outside. We fend him off for now here on lap 28. Alonso still sitting back in P12 as we try to keep our tires alive. Our front left tire is just destroyed. It's just destroyed at this point, as we're tired right now trying to commentate over the rest of this race. But Russell 5.9, almost 6 seconds ahead of Verstappen, and then Piastri P3 for the podium currently, because Tsunoda is already 8.2 seconds back from Piastri, so that's going to be a guaranteed podium unless somebody has an engine failure, and that's us trying to defend against Lance Stroll right now. You can see Jackson ahead pulling away. You could hear Lance Stroll behind us. So we're now on board with Lance Stroll, the end of lap 28, start of lap 29. He's going to have DRS. Can we hold him off? And can we hold Alonso off? Alonso seems a lot farther back, so we just do what we can to push him off the racing line and see if we can outbrake him. Not quite there. That's going to be Lance Stroll into P10 on the final lap of this race here in Qatar, as we look to push this car as much as we can for the end of this race without puncturing this tire. But that's going to be George Russell, top of the podium here in Qatar with one race to go on the season. This race win will push him ahead of Jackson by, I think, like 20 points or something like that. You see Max Verstappen P2 coming around the final corner, already a world champ, just adding more points to that record. And then I believe that's Lando Norris P3 here in Qatar.
And the best of British and the best on the track, it's George Russell who wins.
They had to be decisive with their overtaking today as they worked their way through the field. And those kind of race victories are so enjoyable because it's not just like winning from the front. They really had to work for it today.
From lights out to the checkered flag, this is what they're racing for. It's points and a trip to the podium. By George, he was good today. The top step awaits for George Russell. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.
All right, there we have it. The results for the feature race right here. George Russell, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri on the podium. Oscar Piastri losing 2 positions, finishing on the podium. Yuki Tsunoda, P4. I think that's his best finish so far in the season. I could be wrong, but both Aiden Jackson and Kelly Mayer lost positions after gaining some for penalties from some of the other drivers on the grid. As we go through the standings, and it's going to be a 51-point score race. That's going to be Ferrari with the Constructors' Championship for the 2025 season. And looks like we're going to be leading against Mercedes. If we can finish decent in the last race in P4 on the Constructors. So good spot for Mercedes, good, or Konnersport. Ferrari winning the Constructors' Championship. And then Red Bull sitting in 3rd, as well as Max sitting in P1. And then Yuki Tsunoda back down there in P11. Both Williams drivers actually doing pretty good. They've moved up to P6 these last few races. They've gotten a lot of big upgrades. And excited that the next race is going to be Abu Dhabi for the end of the season 1 here on F1 25. I hope you guys enjoyed the race weekend with the sprint race, the final sprint race of the season. Let's go ahead and move on to the season finale in Abu Dhabi.